Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the March 22nd, 2021 meeting of the Select Board. This meeting is being recorded for broadcast on Zoom and cable television. It's a fine day outside, and I appreciate everybody tuning in on this Monday evening. The first item on our agenda is a joint meeting with the Board of Health to discuss health regionalization grant application that we currently have before us. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that Chris Barrett be named chair of the joint meeting.
Do I have a second?
Mr. Chair, I don't know if we have enough of the Board of Health members on to make motions yet. We need a second member.
Okay, it is nice out right now, so they're probably enjoying that fine weather. So why don't we, Phil, why don't we move a little further in our agenda? And when we do have enough of the Board of Health members on there, Bob, if you could let us know. I do see some people coming on now, Bob.
I think we will in just shortly. I think they're connecting.
Excellent. Well, Rob, until we do have a forum, do you want to just give us a quick update on the COVID-19 response for our community? I know you've done that every meeting. I know this is probably a good opportunity for you to do so.
Yeah, sure. Numbers continue to be positive in Lynnfield. Good news with our schools today. The second graders came back to school full time. And as we all know, on the 5th, we're expecting all students back. Immunizations are now being done completely at the state level, Glenn. We are, however, still running second clinics, particularly with some of our seniors. That's about it. Town hall is open. The library has a plan to open. Recreation is planning a strong summer schedule. All our youth groups are submitting an array of information for us, not only for COVID safety, but in case there is an exposure, that we can identify any youth sports athletes at risk. We learned that from last year when we found ourselves chasing 5 or 6 soccer teams rather than knowing exactly who's on what team and what school they go to and who they've been in contact with. Glenn, you have anything else? I think that sums it up right now.
Yeah, I think that really sums it up. I encourage all Lynnfield residents to pre-register for the vaccine clinics. It's an easy process now on the state website, trying to streamline that navigation for people. So they can go to mass.gov and click on vaccines, and there's a process to get in the queue ahead of everybody, and they'll call you when they have an appointment for you. It's an easier process.
I would agree. It's exciting to see children returning full-time to the classroom. Rob, I would agree with you. And I've seen athletes have hit the field for the Lynnfield Pioneers. The football team has hit the ground running, and I believe that they're undefeated right now. And they had a couple of record-setting games under the belt already. So our students are back in the classrooms, and our student athletes are continuing to thrive on and off the field.
The state also released their graduation rules, and it looks like there's going to be a lot more freedom this year for more traditional graduations, and the schools are putting together a good plan. So there's a lot to look forward to.
Excellent. Thank you, Rob, for that update. And Chief, again, thank you for your leadership leading the emergency preparedness group with the town of Lynnfield. Bob, how do we look right now? I see the thumbs up. Okay, Phil, do you want to restate that motion for our first item on the agenda for our joint meeting with the Board of Health to discuss the health regionalization grant that we currently have before the community?
Absolutely, we'll try that again. So I'll make a motion that I move that Chris Barrett be named chair of the joint meeting.
Do we have a second from one of the two boards?
I second that motion.
Marco, thank you. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. We are now in a joint meeting with the Board of Health to discuss the grant application. I'm going to ask our town administrator, our representatives, to speak to that. Rob, if you want to lead the discussion and speak and identify those people that would speak on behalf of this regionalization grant application.
Sure. I'm very happy to be joined by Reading Town Administrator Bob LaLacheur, as well as the Assistant Town Administrator, Delios. We've worked together for many, many years on various projects, not only in Lynnfield, but in my past job in their incredibly well-run town, that it is a partner for any community to work with. So I believe in appropriate regionalization, all right? Appropriate regionalization is not something in which you take a square peg and fit into a round hole, but you look at potential opportunities and you study them. You look at all the angles and you involve as many people to form a collaborative whose goal, first and foremost, is not to save money, but to provide a more sustainable model that is in the best interest of taxpayers. The public sector is changing in many ways. Those jobs that in which there were several candidates for, and I'll just give you a few examples: assessors, town treasurers, even in some cases rec directors, in some cases IT professionals, directors, veterans administrators. Those jobs are not easily filled. In fact, it has been noted by the Mass Municipal Association and many other organizations that there is in fact a crisis in the number of people going into public sector work. In my past job, we believed in regionalization, in which we ran the IT for Saugus, because it was very difficult for them to find someone, and we had someone that was exceptional. We did veteran services. We joined with Wakefield and Saugus to form a veteran service collaborative that now services triple the amount previous. Actually, many years ago, Bob, myself, and Steve Mayer and Wakefield formed a Tri-City Health Collaborative, in which at that point, because we do not put square pegs in round holes, Reading thought that it was better for them to go out on their own. But over the last decade, Melrose and Wakefield have shared one health director. Now, if you look at those three communities, Reading, Wakefield, and Melrose, they're no bigger than Peabody or Somerville. So the model is not man-made borders. The model is providing the best amount of service you can with the best director. So on Thursday, the state has been working, particularly DPH, fast and furious with different grants and all sorts of different opportunities, because there's a crisis in health directors right now, be it burnout, be it people just simply not interested in going into that field of finding better options in the health sciences. It's super hard to find health directors, particularly in towns like Lynnfield, in which the amount of salary we can offer compared to the market and the amount of work we have just doesn't always add up. And in Reading, they have an opening too. So the state proposed a grant opportunity to really encourage communities, particularly in health, to regionalize. Now, the turnaround time for that grant and the rules of that grant, like everything else in DPH these days, has been changing continuously. But I need to tell tonight, we are not regionalizing a health department tonight. We are not even proposing or encouraging that we are to do that. What we're simply asking from you tonight is to allow us to apply for this grant with no strings attached and begin to explore the possibility of either a 2 or 3 town health collaborative and how those pieces may and may not work. So we are not prepared tonight to answer the questions, how many hours a week are we going to get? Is the same person going to be doing septic in Lynnfield as in Reading? We're simply asking the Board of Health and the Board of Selectmen to allow us to do our due diligence to see if these departments that have a number of strengths and some weaknesses can create a better model for taxpayers. So I'll turn it over to Jean and Bob to talk about the specifics of the grant. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Rob, thank you. Bob or Jean, who would like to go first to speak to that? I want to thank you both for joining us tonight and your willingness to work with the town of Lynnfield on this important matter. So thank you.
Certainly, thank you. I'll say a few things, but Jean is the expert. Rob and I are on the same page philosophically in terms of grants and regionalization. First of all, you figure out what the right thing to do is, and then if somebody is waving some grant money at you, well, you don't say no. But we're not here because a grant exists, but because the grant exists, we certainly want to pursue it. We think that Reading and Lynnfield have a nice opportunity to, eventually put a health department together. We both, are in a position to be exploring that. We just finished our finance committee meeting last week, and they voted to approve unanimously a budget model that changes the way significantly that Reading does public health. We will ask town meeting in another month to create a 9th department head on the town side, and that will be called the health director. So we are emphasizing health, a little bit more dramatically, I guess I'll say. And further, we want to put public health under public safety. So there'll be a police chief, a fire chief, and a public health director all under the same budget. And we believe we have room in the police station to house this person. We've seen certainly through the pandemic, as I know Lynnfield has, how closely public safety and public health had to work. We don't see that changing anytime soon. We also have a substance abuse prevention coalition, formerly known as our CASA, that's branched out into some more positive role models. And they have always been housed in our police station. And when we did that 12 or 13 years ago, we're the only community to do that. And now the market has kind of come around to saying, yeah, it makes sense for an effort like that to be housed with the police officers and to be working with the school system. So we like to think our public health model will, set a tone for the future. Certainly, we have good collaboration in Reading and with our regional partners. But to be real clear here, the grant opportunity is great, but it's not the reason that we would consider doing this endeavor all by itself. I agree with Rob that things need to make sense. You don't do things because someone is giving you money if it's not sustainable in the best interest of everyone. So we share that same philosophy. And I'll turn it over to Jean to give you a little bit of sort of the details of the grant opportunity on the timeline. Thanks for having us tonight.
Thank you so much. Gina, if you would please speak to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bob, for that overview. That's very helpful to give us that context. So one of the things that we talk a lot about in the town of Reading, and before I get started, thank you for having me. We talk a lot about being queued up for opportunities. And that's really what's driving our interest in collaborating with the town of Lynnfield, is we want to be queued up and we want to make sure that if there are opportunities to work collaboratively, number one, but then secondarily to seek some state funding to assist with that, we want to make sure that we are being proactive. And so that's why we're here tonight. That's why we started this conversation a few weeks ago. And I'm very appreciative that there is interest and the will to pursue this opportunity. The grant itself is a multi-year commitment of funds from the state. And it's the Public Health Excellence Grant Program for Shared Services. That's the program I'm referring to. The application due date is April 1st by noon, and applications will be submitted by email. And the core of what the state is looking for is cross-jurisdictional sharing of services. And a lot of what they reference in the request for responses is the Blueprint for Excellence, which, if you haven't had a chance to look at it, is a really well done study that was commissioned a few years ago that really speaks to how can we really work through this cross-jurisdictional sharing model to really leverage more resources. And that's what it's really about. If we get together, we can do more, even without a grant, with the resources that we have. But with a grant, we can really do more. And there's lots of ideas for how we can enhance the delivery of public health services. It's public health is a field that is just intensely changing every day. I am not a public health expert, but thank you for your vote of confidence. I'm a municipal management person. I've been doing this for, unfortunately, 38 years. I started when I was 10. But I mostly have been spending a lot of my career writing grants, and I've spent most of my time in the planning side of the world. But I've been involved with public health for the last 11 years. And before this now shift over to public safety has been part of my department as the public services department. So I've been very involved, especially in the last year. There's been a real opportunity to look at our strengths and weaknesses, and we see a real chance to improve and provide more in terms of public health services if we were to collaborate. There's a whole lot of additional information I could give you about different ideas that I think at this point we would be looking at a combination of outsourced professional services as well as some hiring. So it isn't a clear-cut idea of, oh, we'll, hire 22 people or whatever. The maximum grant award is $300,000 a year for a 3-year period. In my mind, a collaboration like we've been describing would be probably less than that because we are smaller. And to be competitive, and we know there are existing health districts that will be applying, and we know that those districts have strong and deep roots with the state. So for us to think that we could compete with them on the same level for the same money is probably not going to result in a winning application. So I would say it would be a little bit less. I have some ideas, but really that's still in progress in terms of how much. And I know we're not here to talk details, so I don't want to really go there. But it's really just strengthening through collaboration and enhancing what we do in public health.
So, Gene, if I may add, so throughout the whole grant process in the webinar for the grant, they've said 2 communities. On Friday, they said 3 communities. So, that's kind of typical. I don't envision 3 communities getting in on this, and considering they have so much money, I'm going to put my money that they're going to change that. The second thing is, in my head, I thought of it as the Wakefield Melrose model, which it's a management down. When they talk about sharing, and Gene, tell me if I'm wrong from what I've read, it could mean just septic. It could mean a relationship in terms of restaurant inspections, right? If we involve the 3rd community, it just needs to be an wet marriage between 3 communities to deliver as many services as they possibly can to qualify. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think what they're really looking at is, and there's no one size fits all. Everybody's different, and so they want to see what the communities are going to propose. They want to see how this obviously is going to enhance public health services and deliver on some of these items that they call out in the Blueprint for Excellence.
Okay, thank you for your input on that. I greatly appreciate it. At this point, I'd like to ask Phil, representative of the Select Board, or any of the Board of Health members who are part of the discussion tonight, if they have any questions or input.
I want to thank Gene and Bob for coming here tonight and bringing this to us. I think it's a great opportunity for us to at least look into. We obviously want to make sure it's a good fit. I think we're at a crossroads right now, so I think it's a good time to look at it. And the timing's very good. I wish they didn't make it a 3 community grant, and hopefully do go back to 2. But if you can piece it out, that's maybe that 3rd community can come in for a piece of this. But I am certainly in favor of at least exploring the possibility and getting that application, because I know we're on a tight timeline to get that in. So I don't have any specific questions at this time because there's really nothing to get into the nitty-gritty yet. So,
Phil, thank you. Any members of the Board of Health, any comments or questions, or do we want to move towards a motion?
Well, I would echo what Phil Prophet has indicated, and certainly this is an opportunity. And as a board, Board of Health of Lynnfield, I feel we have a responsibility to listen. Certainly we have our challenges. I think all the Board of Healths have their own challenges. I think the pandemic has certainly exposed or exacerbated some of the issues that we have. But my concern and again, I know we're just looking at the application process. And certainly this working committee would work out the details, but if the fit has to be correct, I think, and the loss of control would be somewhat of a concern, whether it regards septic or food inspection, which I think is more standardized, but specifically as it relates to septic in Lynnfield, which is a predominant part of our workload in town, given the fact that we're all on septic and we don't have a public disposal system as Reading has. I know Reading does do some septic. I'm not sure what percentage or how many cases you handle a year, but I would imagine, given the larger population, it's still far less than what we do in Lynnfield.
Doctor, thank you for your input. I would agree with you and Phil with your comments. Again, I appreciate the input from Bob and Jean. At this point, do we have a motion to be read?
I have a question, please.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So it sounds like that the state is giving some flexibility in terms of the type of collaboration and what type of collaboration depending on the needs of the town. How much of that needs to be worked out ahead of time and put into the grant proposal?
Rob, Jean, or Rob?
Sure, I can answer that through you, Mr. Chair. So I think what the state is looking for at this point is an outline of how we would go at this. Mm-hmm. There is going to be a formalized work plan after the grants are awarded. So I think as long as we have a general idea of how to go at it, the state is okay with that. But there will be definitely, if we're successful, there'll be additional detailed work plans following up and other agreements.
So has the general idea been outlined then between the two towns? Because the grant's due within a week, so I'm just curious where we are in this process.
Yes, we have talked generally about the kinds of things that we could share. And there's nothing really specific at this point, but we have been in discussion. The grant is due in 10 days, so in grant writing, that's years.
I'd also like to say one thing. If we were not applying for this grant, we should still be having this conversation, right? So the grant could just be a bonus in terms of dollars, but privatization of this particular department, as well as a few others, given the timing, as you know, the building inspections for years were joined with Wakefield. Now we felt that with Wakefield that we could do a different model, that we should be investigating this regardless of this grant.
So who is providing the details from Lynnfield's end on what we would like to see in this grant?
Well, I think that's the next step. Like, we literally found out about this grant last week, right? So my vision for it is that we have a small team, right? It could be a member of it could be Glenn and I. It would be a member of the Board of Health. It might be Peg Saladay, who has extensive health consulting background. We could put a small group together in Reading would put a small group together, and we'd work this out and come up with a proposal.
Okay. All right, and then my second question is, could you just clarify again, what are we committed to with this grant?
We are committed to absolutely nothing. We could, even if we were to get the grant, we could reject it. Basically, we're submitting by April 1st, then getting to work on investigating some of this.
So if after the grant goes through, we have decided through numerous conversations that either some or all or none of this is a good fit for Lynnfield, we can decide not to move forward with the process.
Correct. And obviously the Board of Health would be the governing body for that.
Okay. All right.
Bill, thank you. Any further questions or comments?
Yeah, and again, we're looking for the correct fit. I understand that, and that you were not successful with the grants. This is probably a conversation that is not a bad thing to have. But are we not clear with the third town? Do we have to seek a third town, or we can submit the grant just with Reading at this point? Also, $300,000. Is that shared, or does each community? I would imagine that's shared.
Yeah, that is shared, and Jean reached out to the Assistant Commissioner of Mass DPH today and has not heard back yet. Both Lynnfield and Reading actually already share services from a third community that I shouldn't really mention. We each share an employee on a contract basis, so that would be a natural fit. And we complement you in the sense that we have very, very few septic. And you are very busy in septic. I think Jean used a number of less than 10 a year. So, there is another community identified if 3 is necessary.
We've also received support over the last several weeks from that same community. So it might be a relationship that might work.
So when this application is submitted, that third community is going to be listed on that application. Is that correct?
We don't know yet. It's really up to Mass DPH to tell us what their final rules are on, whenever they do that. Okay. So at this point, I think we all prefer to go forward with a 2-town application, as has been planned all along. It's, the flexibility is really up to Mass DPH, whether to encourage us to add a third community or allow 2. We leave that in their hands.
And the state's going to, when are they going to decide, make a decision on this grant? I mean, it's going to be well before July 1st, or is that the date that they're going to decide?
I think they said 30 days because they wanted a 2-month in the current fiscal year beginning budget, if you will, which would be May and June. So that would suggest 30 days, which is pretty fast.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. I appreciate your comments and questions. Any further comments or questions before we have a motion to consider? Hearing and seeing none, do I have a motion for us to consider for the Board of Health and the Select Board?
Mr. Chairman, I move the board authorize the application to the Public Health Excellent Grant Program for shared services with the town of Reading.
Do I have a second? I will second that. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Doctor, any members of the Board of Health?
Aye.
I think you're on mute.
You're on mute, Rocco.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries. I want to thank Bob and Jean for their time tonight coming before us. We look forward to working with you on this issue and many issues we've worked with your town and community before. So we thank you. May you both have a wonderful night. The second item on our agenda, and I also like to thank the Board of Health for joining us tonight. We greatly appreciate your time tonight and your partnership with us, especially over the past year. Very challenging year for the town of Lynnfield, so thank you for that. We're going to move on to item number 2, 6 p.m., a public hearing application for an on-premises all alcohol license, The Next One, Inc., Alchemy, 1100 Market Street. This public hearing, as we know, was duly advertised and posted, and the applicant and the legal representatives have confirmed that they will attend. I have many people before me on my Zoom meeting. Bob, do we have representatives of the company before us?
I believe so, Mr. Chair. I would ask them to identify themselves if they're here.
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
Please identify yourself.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Jill Mann from Man & Man. Melissa Ogden is with me as well, and we are legal counsel for The Next One. Here also to assist with regard to the application is Seth Freitas. He is going to be, if permitted by this board, the license manager.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want me to continue with the presentation?
Absolutely, please do.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, Jill Mann here on behalf of the next one. We're here seeking a new liquor license for the location at the Marketplace, 1100 Market Street. The particular location, just so everybody can kind of get oriented, is the old Gaslight. So we are taking over that space and plan on opening a brand new restaurant with a varied theme, American cuisine, and we will have an on-site sushi bar as well. This is a new license because when the old restaurant turned in its license, it actually turned in its liquor license as well. Excuse me, turned in its lease, it turned in its liquor license as well. Therefore, we're seeking a brand new license under this particular premise. In compliance with the rules and regulations, we did submit to the board an application for a liquor license, an application for a common victualler license, and an associated license for on-site entertainment, because we do plan on having somewhat limited live entertainment, as well as we will have TVs in the bar. So we have submitted all of those particular documents and all of the supporting information. We submitted to you the query forms for Mr. Freitas, as well as for the principal owner of the entity, the next one, who is Mark McDonough, and all of that is included in your package. We did submit a floor plan showing how we will renovate somewhat the space. We're just making it our own. Essentially, we're creating a sushi bar, we're creating a different center bar, whereas the old premises had a bar on the side. This one will have one right in the middle. We are continuing to use the patio. The areas, just so that I can refresh everybody's recollection, the total property is about 8,300 square feet. The outdoor patio is about 2,200. And then the inside space, including the kitchen, is about 6,400. So the actual inside interior dining, sit dining, and bar take up about 4,400 to 4,500 square feet, and it'll service about 194 people. That's what our occupancy is. And outside is about 103 people. We are going to do business under the name Alchemy, and we did file that doing business certificate with the town clerk for the town of Lynnfield. In addition, we are asking, or when we submitted our application, this particular company, the next one, is part of a, not a chain, but a group, the Serenity Group, but many people know other of these restaurants. And it's managed by one entity that just basically allows it to have economies of scale. So for buying purposes, but at all points in time, the licensee, the next one, will be solely responsible for overseeing the license through Mr. Freitas, and is responsible for its independent finances as well. And that really is the license application in a nutshell. And if any of the members would have any questions for me, for Melissa, or for Mr. Freitas, we will welcome them. Thank you very much for your time.
So thank you for this wonderful presentation in depth. So I thank you. Phil, do you have any questions or comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jill, thank you for that presentation. Appreciate it. Yeah, I was curious on what you were going to do with the space to change the build out, and it's nice. I think I like to know that the knowledge now that that's a sushi bar, because that's something that would be a nice addition to the Market Street mix. This is a sister restaurant to the Alchemy in Gloucester, correct?
It is.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Yes, 100% correct.
Yeah, my brother lives in Rockport, and that's his favorite restaurant out there. So
Nice.
he was very familiar with your product, and he speaks very highly of it. So I just want to make sure that everyone, you know, is diligent about abiding by the alcohol serving regulations and be very cognizant of that piece of it, because it's certainly something that we watch very closely, and we want to make sure everybody abides by the tips and the serve safe training they've had. And of course, Seth, that's going to be your job to make sure that's complied with on a daily basis. So I think it's nice that you're here and using that wonderful space. I think the build out there was a tremendous build out. So
Yeah,
making your own's nice, but I think it'll be a nice addition to the mix that we have up there for restaurants. And I wish you guys all the best.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think you said it well. Certainly those are the concerns that we certainly ask any establishment that comes before us. So Phil, thank you for asking those questions and hearing it. Your brother think so highly of this establishment. I think I know where I'm going to go with this vote, Bill. So thank you. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to approve the application for an on-premises all alcohol license for the next one, DBA Alchemy at 1100 Market Street.
I will second that, and by roll call vote, Mr. Crawford.
Aye.
And I am an aye. That passes. So thank you for you and your team for coming before the board, the select board, and presenting this application to us. Best of luck, and if there's any help and support that you need from us for your continued success, and which certainly would help the town of Lynnfield, please let us know.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We appreciate your support. Tell your brother we look forward to seeing him. Mr. Crawford.
I will. Thank you. Thank you. Good luck.
care.
Thank you. Yep.
Good night.
Thank you. Our next public hearing is at 6:10, so I'm going to skip to number 4, change of manager application for seasonal on-premises wine and malt license at the Sagamore Golf Club course at 1287 Main Street. Timothy Doucette, who was the manager, the owner and the manager have been notified of the meeting. Are they in this meeting now?
Yes.
Yes.
Tim, would you both of you like to speak to this request?
Sure, I can take that up first. I've been with Sagamore for 5 years now. I took over as general manager in January, and we're just looking to change the manager's form on our license. We've already submitted our license, taken care of all the paperwork, so we're just looking to wrap things up on our end.
Thank you. Any further comment from the Sagamore group?
No, just reiterate what Tim said. I'm Richard Luff. I'm the president and owner of Sagamore Golf, which does business as Sagamore Spring Golf Club. And this is simply just a change of manager application, and seeking your approval from the board this evening.
Well, Mr. Luff, thank you. Certainly Sagamore has been a strong partner for Lynnfield for many decades. We thank you for your support of our community, and it's one of our most celebrated businesses in the community, Mr. Luff. So I think I don't have any further questions or comments. Phil, to you.
No, I don't have any questions. Just make sure that, you're conscientious of serving. I know you have a seasonal license up there. You don't have a full bar, but it's still something we want to make sure that everybody's taken care of and there's no underage drinking. So, but you guys have always done a wonderful job. Richard, you've run a great operation up there for many years, so we thank you for that. So I don't have any other comments or questions on that at all.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Make a motion.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to approve the application for a change of manager for the seasonal on-premise wine and malt license, Sagamore Golf Inc., DBA Sagamore Spring Golf Course at 1287 Main Street. Timothy Doucette, manager.
I will second that, and by roll call vote, Mr. Crawford.
Aye.
And I am an aye, and it passes. Best of luck for the continued success of the Sagamore Golf Course. Thank you both for joining us tonight.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate that.
I know in South Lynnfield we just reached 6:10 p.m. So I think I'm going to move forward with the public hearing for the application for transfer of an on-premises all alcohol license legal seafoods, legal sea bar at 220 Market Street. As I noted before, the other establishment, this public hearing was duly advertised and posted, and the applicant and the legal representatives have been confirmed, and they confirmed that they will attend. We have representatives of the legal seafoods in our meeting tonight.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Chair, Mr. Crawford. Attorney Trish Farnsworth. I represent Legal Seafoods, and with me is the manager, Jonathan Brackman. And this is an application for transfer. It's the existing legal sea bar that has been there. A group out of Ireland is purchasing the legal seafoods restaurant. There's 23 of them totally in 5 different states. And this one here is before you for the transfer, and that there's also a pledge as part of the application to the lender, Northern Bank. Mr. Brackman was the manager under the prior owner, Mr. Berkowitz and Mr. Bregman's staying. So he will be continue to be the manager on the license.
Tricia, thank you. Jonathan's on this call also. Is he with you?
He's right there on the call there.
Yeah, I'm here.
Jonathan, welcome to a remote meeting of the Select Board tonight. Is there anything you'd like to speak to?
No, just glad to be here. Thanks for hearing us out, and just glad to be open, doing business, and hopefully things are getting back to normal soon. That's the big thing.
Myself and my colleagues think the same, and we're seeing positively moving in that direction. So it is good to see. Mr. Crawford, do you have any comments or questions for legal seafood?
No, I went through the package. Everything's in order, and I'm happy that there's a continuity of management there. I think that makes it nice and keeps things familiar to everybody. I think that's a very popular spot. It's one of my favorites, and I think it's to keep that going on the way it's been. I think that's a nice way to do it. I'm sure they don't want to change too much other than the ownership piece. So I don't have any questions or comments, and I would be willing to make a motion when you're ready.
Excellent. I'm ready for a motion.
Okay. I move that the board vote to approve the application for transfer of an on-premises all alcohol license at Legal Seafoods LLC to LSF Lynnfield LLC, DBA Legal Sea Bar at 220 Market Street.
I will second that by roll call vote. Mr. Crawford.
Aye.
And I am an aye. Trish and Jonathan, your continued success at Legal Seafood, and as I would agree with Phil, no need to mess with success. It's a fine establishment, and certainly it's done a wonderful job at Market Street. So best of luck on your continued success.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck. Yep.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. We're going to move on to number 5 on our items tonight. For the common vic license application, Chipotle Mexican Grill, 425 Market Street. The owner and the manager have been notified of the meeting, and they told us that they will attend. Are they in the meeting tonight?
Hi, yes, this is Raj Kapadia. I'm the licensing agent for Chipotle Mexican Grill.
Raj, thank you. You speak on behalf of that group tonight.
Correct.
Thank you. Please certainly speak to the request for consideration of the select board tonight.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Do you want to speak to your request for the select board tonight for a common vic application?
I don't have anything. I'm sorry, I don't have anything additional to add to our application on top of what we already submitted to Board of Health and the Select Board. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Crawford, do you want to, I know you have reviewed the application as well as I have, and Mr. Dalton, do you have any further questions or comments yourself, Mr.?
No, not for the common vic. That's a common license. There isn't a lot of, thought that have to go into those. We give that out on a regular customary business level. So I would certainly be willing to make a motion. And I'm not sure where is what part of the development is the 425 Market Street.
Let me see. I have
we know.
In front of me.
What are you next to, Raj?
That is.
They're next to Starbucks.
Question, because I have the plan open in front of me. Anytime it's a new development, I have.
Yeah, but I didn't. Well, I'm not trying to throw you a curveball. I was just curious.
Oh no, you're fine. I can probably figure it out. Hold on.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that's the former Beloco location.
Oh, the Beloco. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think it is. You are right, Bob.
Yep.
Let's see. Where does it say? Okay, it looks like we are taking over what appears to be the old Beloco restaurant that used to be there. It's right next to the Starbucks in that plaza.
Excellent.
And the Panera Bread.
Beautiful.
Excellent, Raj. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. We have a motion, Mr. Crawford.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to approve the application of a common vicular license for Chipotle Mexican Grill at 425 Market Street.
I will second that by roll call vote. Mr. Crawford.
Aye.
And I am an aye. Raj, best of luck with your continued success. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to move on. An important proclamation about the Influence Week. Peg Saladay, I think she is on this call. I don't know if I have seen her. Phil is going to read the proclamation. And I just want to again applaud Phil Crawford for his leadership with a healthy Lynnfield. To see our most recent students on the youth council, the leaders in the town of Lynnfield, our high school students, it certainly has been inspiring to all of us. Mr. Crawford, it's been nice to see that over the last couple of weeks of those students speaking to their interest in a healthy Lynnfield and being leaders on this important issue. So if you want to speak to the proclamation and read it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As chairman of Healthy Lynnfield, I'll do this on behalf of the group. And the month of April is Substance Abuse Awareness Month, and we as a board have the opportunity to approve the last week of the month as Above the Influence Week, and I would like to read a proclamation that I'd like to have the board sign if we could. So it's called Above the Influence Week, April 25th to the 30th, and it says, whereas the Above the Influence campaign is a prevention platform encouraging teens to remain drug-free. April 25th marks an official Above the Influence Week in Lynnfield, during which community partners adopt this campaign to encourage young people to rise above the negative influences and to stand for the positive influences in their lives. It is well documented that teens who do not use drugs and alcohol achieve better grades than their classmates who choose to use. The goal of a Healthy Lynnfield is to engage the community in supporting healthy decisions for youth and families, and keeping teens drug-free is achieved through community support. We, the Board of Selectmen of the town of Lynnfield, Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim the week of April 25th to the 30th, 2021, to be Above the Influence Week in Lynnfield, Massachusetts, and ask our citizens to stand above teen drug use and stand for programs and ideals that support Lynnfield youth. Signed by the Lynnfield Board of Selectmen. Select Board. Thank you.
Bill, thank you. Thank you again. I applaud you for your leadership and the leadership of our youth council on this important topic. The town of Lynnfield, we certainly have, I think, been leaders in the state of Massachusetts on this important topic. Do we want to vote affirmation and the support of that proclamation?
Yes, I'll move that we approve the Above the Influence Week for the week of April 25th to the 30th for the town of Lynnfield.
I would proudly second that. By roll call vote, Mr. Crawford.
Aye.
And I am an aye. Mr. Crawford, thank you for your part in doing that. Number 7, we have DPW Director John Tomez to speak to the Energy Service Company proposal before us to discuss a program approval will be sought at our annual town meeting. This is to bring our community up to speed on this important item before us. Mr. Tomez. Thomas, I think you are muted.
No, now he's muted. He's up. What's the level flower?
I think we're having some technical difficulties with DPW right now.
All right, are the reps presenters here?
Yes, we are here.
Okay, Morgan. All right, so we'll try to get John hooked up. So several years ago, Ted Caswell, who was a citizen, an architect, did a capital inventory of the community through a grant from the state. And it identified millions of dollars worth of capital programs that aren't really the sexy topics like new schools, but are really kind of the blocking and tackling of facility management. Things like, you know, heaters and cracks in windows and projects big and small that add up to millions of dollars. Now, we know that these projects probably are not going to be in the front of the line when its competition might be a new police or fire station, might be a new library, or new schools, or a fire truck. So eventually, in many communities, there is almost a rot of municipal buildings due to the inability of towns under Prop 2.5 and under the incredible needs of public education and public safety to get to these projects. So over the last decade, several communities, and again in my past life we did this where I was, we put out an analysis of our infrastructure and to form an ESCO, an Energy Services Initiative. So John did an incredible job to go through and interview several companies, along with Steve and the rest of the DPW crew, to propose a project for the town of Lynnfield. And we have gotten to a point where we're ready to present a $6 million project to the town that will address all of the guts, I hate to use that vernacular, of our town to spend through a bond that money. But in return, it will be paid off by the savings incurred through those infrastructure improvements. So what we're proposing would be a bond to create the largest really public works facilities project in the history of the town, and it would be completely off the tax rolls. It'd be completely off the Prop 2.5 levy. So that sounds incredible, almost too good to be true, but I experienced it. Wakefield has, and countless communities across the Commonwealth have worked with companies to not only be successful, but to save that money over a period of 20 years to allow the town to do projects that I don't think in many cases would ever be done until there was a crisis. So Morgan, I'll turn it over to you. I provided some color commentary there, but you can get into the specifics, and there's a presentation that goes with it.
I think you did a fantastic job, Rob. I'm wondering if you should take it away from here.
Well, let's start with the roof. No.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for having us. My name is Morgan Paris. I'm with Train, and as Rob so eloquently described, I'm here on behalf of Train as an ESCO. My colleagues here with me are Leo McNeil, who's the Regional Director of Comprehensive Solutions, Yaju Chauhan, who's our lead energy engineer for the project, and then Tony Busher, who is the project developer for this project as well as a PE. And we are here to discuss, as Rob said, the first phase of what will hopefully be a potentially multi-phase project with the town of Lynnfield that will help you address a number of outdated capital improvements that need to be done over the next 5 to 10 years. So right off the bat, I'll just do a quick agenda on what an ESCO is, what is an energy services company, what is performance contracting, who is Train, why am I here today, what are the solutions that we are presenting on, a quick project review, and then a proposed action plan for how to implement next. Now, typically in these Zoom calls, I know only have a few minutes, maybe 10 to 15, so I want to go pretty quickly, and I think it's probably best for me to just zoom through the slides and then have a quick Q&A at the end. Does that work for everyone? Yes, okay, awesome.
Certainly does.
Perfect. So first, start off with what is an ESCO? What is an energy services company? And the Department of Energy puts it so perfectly, I think I might just read it. Energy services companies develop, design, build, and arrange financing for projects that save energy, reduce energy costs, and decrease operations and maintenance costs at their customers' facilities. In general, ESCOs act as project developers for comprehensive range of energy conservation measures and assume the technical and performance risks associated with a project. So In performance contracting, which is the procurement method that allows ESCOs to do what we do every day, there's an alternative procurement and contracting method that probably most are familiar with in Massachusetts. It's enabled by Massachusetts General Legislature 25A11I, and it is supported by the DOER of Massachusetts. And the benefit and the special nature of performance contracting is that one qualified firm or one qualified ESCO provides essentially every step of the process of a comprehensive project. They help with the design, they implement the solution and install all of the projects, they perform the ongoing maintenance for up to the 20-year term, and then they guarantee those energy savings for a full 20 years. And like Rob described, that is what helps pay off the project over the term. So the projects are funded independent of the capital budget, and they're paid over time entirely or in part by energy savings. And that's what makes Massachusetts a little bit special than other states, is they allow us to do projects in a little bit more of a flexible manner. Sometimes projects are a little bit more capital oriented, like a roof or windows, and that allows you to do those projects even if they don't 100% pay for themselves. So it's just a little bit more flexible than some others, but that is the essence of performance contracting. Who is Trane? We are a global leading manufacturer of high quality HVAC equipment and controls, as well as a leader in energy and environmental systems. We've been in the industry for over 120 years and have done over $1.2 billion across the nation in energy services and performance contracting. Now, what makes us a unique ESCO is what I just said, is that we are a manufacturer of high quality HVAC equipment and controls, which typically are the main component of these types of performance contracting projects. Now, if the main component of the project is something that we manufacture directly, that provides a significant cost advantage to the town if that is what we're supplying to you without all those extra middlemen price markups that most other ESCOs have to go through. So manufacturer direct pricing is one of the main benefits of working with Trane. In addition, Lynnfield, I'm not going to say all the buildings, but I think almost all the buildings all have Trane equipment already. Now, if you're replacing like for like equipment, modifying equipment, or making small modifications with the same manufacturer, you're going to have to do less work than if you were to change the manufacturer and the systems. So that's also a cost benefit as well as an efficiency benefit too. And Trane has significant service relationships with the town of Lynnfield as well. Now, past all of that, Trane has an incredible track record across the state of Massachusetts and across New England. All of our projects have exceeded the guarantees that we have given to our customers. So if we have said that we are going to save you X amount of dollars, we have followed through 100% of the time. And on average, we go about 11 to 13% over with our guarantees than what we promised to our customers. And we've done over $120 million in local projects across New England. Now, as you can see from our map here, this is Massachusetts and surrounding areas. We are incredibly local to the area, especially to Lynnfield. If you can see, our flag is just slightly left of Lynnfield over in Wilmington. So not only do we have the local presence near the community, but we also have an incredible number of resources nearby as well. So just my main point here is that we have the people across not only the region, but locally to your area. And we have all the resources to help you over the next 20 years to make this project successful, in addition to the few local people on your team that I mentioned earlier. Now, typically, people choose performance contracting for a number of reasons. I already mentioned it's more seamless than a lot of other procurement methods. It's cost effective, it's comprehensive, and it's much quicker. But some of the main reasons, one of the main reasons why people choose performance contracting is because of its flexible ability in allowing you to attack a lot of growing capital needs that most schools and towns are facing, specifically these days, if not just in general. So we hope in this project to proactively replace your physical plant equipment in a comprehensive manner, whereas normally it would be a phased approach over a few years. We hope to comprehensively attack your buildings all at once with new HVAC equipment, controls, and other typical energy conservation measures as well. We hope to green your facilities, which is sometimes a little bit more difficult to do when you're working in a municipal light plant, but we have worked pretty closely with Peabody Municipal Light Plant as well as Reading to secure and at least talk over the applicable rebates that would line up with the projects that we're looking at doing. We will reduce your energy consumption and demand over the next 20 years significantly, and I'll talk about that in a minute, as well as this project will only further the indoor air quality improvements that John and his team have made and have continued to maintain in the HVAC equipment that's already existing. Scheduled to date. So this is what we've done so far. The town of Lynnfield issued their RFQ, which is a DOER model document, back in August. We interviewed in September, training was selected in October of 2020. We executed the detailed audit agreement, which is the typical energy audit where we develop our scope of improvements. We did develop those scope of improvements from October to January, and we are in the process now of, we decided on a phase 1 project, and we're presenting it to the necessary decision makers to hopefully implement and bring to town meeting. This is an energy summary of the town of Lynnfield. Dark blue is what is existing energy and cost, and light blue is where we will bring you should you proceed with this project. These are calculated energy costs based on the rates that you have been paying. And as you can see, it's pretty significant, specifically on the larger schools, such as the high school and the middle school. Those clearly have a larger square foot. They're used more often in hours, and also the equipment that's at those facilities is more significant. And then this is a summary of the overall town's utility consumption. We will drop 30% based on our calculated models. And this is, I just want to reinforce the fact that 241 is guaranteed energy savings that Train will put in our contract that we will sign and make sure get reported to you every year. That's the kind of 30% chunk we're talking about when we talk about these projects. And then this is what the project looks like for a phase 1. Phase 1 is in green, and future ECMs would be in dark blue. So that's where we can have a little bit of a phased approach with some of these projects. But the green is what we are looking at doing for this first phase. Some boiler plants, steam to hot water conversion, controls, some lighting, and building envelope. And then this is just the same breakdown again. New boilers at the middle school, library, senior center, and South Fire. A very extensive steam to hot water conversion that will bring up the efficiency significantly at the high school. A complete new building automation system that's 100% Train at all of the facilities you can access from one point. Lighting updates, building envelope that will seal the building, take away the cracks, weatherize, that produces pretty significant energy savings, as well as some kitchen work and pipe insulation. So just some pictures of the boilers that are existing in some of your facilities. Those boilers on the left are the steam boilers. So this is what we hope to completely replace, and hopefully we'll have a fun after picture. We can show the before and after of these. And then this is what we have for additional future project options, would be some more HVAC equipment and controls in some of the other facilities. Right now we're just doing senior center for all new HVAC. Renewable energy projects, we have looked at solar, both roof mounted and solar carports, and then also some additional IEQ enhancements that would supplement what John and his team have already done. And here's the financial summary. So we're looking at about $6 million and based on our models, that is a roughly self-funding type project over a 20-year term with about a 1.8% interest rate. And majority or all of those payments would be guaranteed energy savings from Train in about $7 million over that 20-year term. And John and I have talked about this multiple times, but this is all work that needs to be done eventually. So it's whether you do it now, you do it in the future, you do it with Train, you do it piecemeal, or you do it all together. So you are avoiding these millions of dollars in upgrades that you could be doing in future years, but that you will do, or hopefully will do now, all at once, comprehensively with one firm, avoiding all these dollars in capital expenses. Just to summarize the benefits to the community, Fiscally, it's about $6 million in needed facility updates with no capital outlay, where Train is guaranteeing those savings that will help pay for the project over the 20 years, while also including utility rate rebates that are available from Reading Municipal Light or Peabody to help reduce the upfront cost. Social benefits of optimizing indoor air quality, past what John and his team are already doing. Anytime you're upgrading your ventilation systems, you're going to be helping the indoor air environment of those buildings. And then sustaining that optimal performance with ongoing maintenance with Train and the team combined to make sure that those systems are running optimally for the next 20 years. And that's measurement and verification, as well as service of existing and new equipment. And then lastly, measurable reduction in utility consumption of about 30% with a significant carbon emission reduction that goes along with that. And next steps. Next steps are to place the project in town warrant coming up, hopefully secure approval at the June 2021 meeting, execute the agreements and proceed. That can happen as soon as approval is secured at the town meeting. Facility upgrades would be implemented. Hopefully some would be done in that summer of 2021, and the remaining that isn't done when we are able in the next few months would be pushed out to summer 2022. And then for the next 20 years, we would be maintaining systems, measuring and verifying savings, and then guaranteeing those to the town. And I think that is it. Concluded my presentation, but opening the floor to any questions, should anyone have any.
Well, thank you. I think one question, just a clarifying question, or just a question in general. The boilers, for example, I think it was the middle school and the high school. And so that's included in that number. Is the project cost also include the materials and the boilers themselves?
Yes. So actually, I don't think that the middle school is in this phase, but the high school steam to hot water conversion is, and that would include the boilers as well as other plant equipment that is needed with the boilers, like pumps and piping, etc.
So you certainly see significant need there, and that's a significant cost.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, the community looking at that. And quickly, another question I have. We are considering, as a community, looking at a new public safety building, possibly a new library and a new development. Would this be included in this overall cost? Would it be above and beyond that? Maybe Rob, that's a question for you.
So we are approaching this right now as if the current buildings are going to stay, because we have no guaranteed, otherwise decisions, right? But take the schools, for instance, the new schools. This is the perfect time for them to work collaboratively with our architect and with those schools to get the right systems in place. Obviously we talked about a library and public safety building, and it is our hope that we're able to take advantage of all those things. But that may be 7, 5, 8, 10 years away, and we still have to maintain these buildings. So unless otherwise something miraculous happens in the next few years, then we're going to maintain the buildings that we have. But again, there's no risk to the community, in the sense that we're going to sign a contract with these deals, and if we go to a different building, if we're going to go to build a new building, then we'll have all new stuff, and it'll all be green and meet current guidelines. So
thank you, Rob. Phil, I think you're on mute.
How's that?
There you go.
Can some of those the cost savings that we have help John Tomaz buy some new technology? Because I know he's having trouble getting on the call. But I've always had a strong support for the maintenance and the upkeep of these buildings. And the school project we did back in the early 2000s is already starting. Some of that equipment's already starting to come to life, and we are already looking at replacing some of this. So this is very timely, and I'm sure your study showed that. that this would be needed and will certainly be a benefit to the town. I think in a big way, because I work in this arena and I see the maintenance contracts and the capital costs that all the towns have to do to keep their buildings up, and it is significant. So I think this is an excellent way to fund a project like this and also maintain and keep your buildings up to date over a long period of time. The big question I had is what is the maintenance piece of this? Does Train also maintain these, or is that also left with the town under their own maintenance programs?
It is a combination of whatever suits your needs the best. We're happy to provide maintenance on whatever equipment it makes sense, essentially. Does it make sense for Train to be replacing filters? Probably not. So a combination of whatever fits what the existing team is doing and what Train is capable of doing as well is whatever we're willing to provide.
Yeah, because we have an existing maintenance program. We have a funded capital maintenance fund, so it can be supplement to that. But I realize that Train's an excellent product out there, and it's certainly got a high quality reputation. So I don't have a problem with Train. Like I said, we already have a Train products in-house. I think this is really a great opportunity for the town, and I think we should strongly look at taking advantage of it.
Well, Phil, I would agree, and I think even on the green piece, I know we've looked at it as a select board, looking at opportunities to, whether it's the carports piece with the solar panels, and maybe this again is a question for Rob or Morgan for you. Is this the type of group that will take the lead for us on that and present us opportunities to look at as a community to further go in that direction?
Yes, absolutely. We're happy to be a part of those types of conversations and help you look at those and analyze whether it makes sense for you. Sometimes it makes financial sense, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it makes social sense, sometimes it doesn't. So in these cases, we can kind of figure out what best fits your needs in that area.
Morgan, thank you. I know, as Phil said, our DPW director is having some technical difficulties at this moment. I don't know if John is able to. I am. Excellent. He is calling from a DPW shelter right now. Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Oh, good Lord. I apologize. Unfortunately, I missed Train's presentation, but I'm sure it was excellent. They've been a pleasure to work with. And a couple of quick comments I have is that, we had talked to folks from Wakefield, of course, and Lynn has done this, and Merrill's has done this, and all three of those towns had nothing but good things to say about this program and how, the cost savings exceeded what they had proposed. And of course, Train is pretty much, they do make that same recommendation. So again, I'm fully behind this program, and I think it's going to be something the town's going to be very happy that they got involved with.
John, I would agree. As Phil said, I think it is timely for us to look at this and consider this as some of our buildings, especially our schools, are aging, and we need to do work to certainly bring them up to speed in this area. So I think it is certainly timely and worth considering. Phil, any other further comments or questions?
No, but I appreciate Morgan did a great job with the presentation. And I appreciate you guys working on this with our town. I think it's a much needed piece that we should continue to do, and that it's going to be a big benefit that we should promote at the town meeting.
Thank you so much.
Likewise,
thank you,
Morgan.
everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We greatly appreciate it. We're going to move on now to thank you, Morgan. Item number 8, DPW fiscal year 2022 budget proposal. John now is on our call to review his operating and capital budget request. John, are you able to do that? I know you're on your cellular phone right now, your mobile phone.
Yeah, no, I'm able to give a presentation. I'll start off with the budget. I'll give you a quick lowdown of that, and that essentially there's 4 components. I mean, the labor, the union and non-union labor went up 1.5% as required. A couple of the adjustments or increases were due to uniforms, longevity, or licenses, per the contract. The only budget increase I have in there is for solid waste for $88,000, which again I know you're all familiar with. And as you can see, my overall budget went up 1.8%, of which only $48,164 that is for salaries. The other that, again, $88,000 is for trash and recycling, collection, and disposal. So again, there are some adjustments made throughout the budget, but again, whatever I added to one line item, I deleted from the other one or reduced on the other one. So again, it's a pretty, I think, lean bone budget that I still think works well for the town. As far as capital goes, there's a couple of those that just are necessary. We have buses, we have NPDES permit, which we have to do. Again, we could always use a truck. I have a request in there for that. One thing I put in there is that we were talking about the schools, and at the middle school and the high school, we have a sewer treatment plant. And over the next few years, again, we will need to spend some money to upgrade some of the equipment there, which again, is getting 20 plus years old. So this is a request to start, attacking some of those items. Again, what we're trying to do is, rather than wait until everything goes, kind of work each year to get those taken care of. So that's what that one is all about. We have, let's see, another one there, of course, a normal one for road construction, $350,000. Normally we get in the $450 to $470 range from the state. So again, that's something that I think worked out great for the town. Allows us to do anywhere from 5 to 8 roads each year. And again, the last thing I have there is for town-wide drainage. Again, that's something we try to work on every year and get some of those done to make sure that, again, rather than having one big one, we attack, a few each year to make sure that's all taken care of. And again, one more thing too is, at some point we're going to have to replace the shingles at the library. Again, I've requested $30,000 for that. But again, that's not a high priority, but again, it's something that I really want to put on people's radar.
Thank you for your overview of your operating and your capital budget. Phil, do you have any questions or comments?
Oh, John, thank you very much for that. I still, and I think Rob and I talked about this a little bit, I'd still make sure we provide some funding for the road construction if we can do it, because that's certainly a program that we've put in place for the last several years, and I'd like to keep going. John, do you know what you have left from last year funding for the spring road construction work?
We usually have Charlie usually carries, going to the spring, about $85,000 to $100,000 to kind of finish off some of the projects and get started on others. So I can verify that, but I think I'm in the ballpark of what we have floating around right now.
Okay, so we're going to pretty much rely on the July 1st appropriation for any major projects from here on out. Yeah, what is also, this is kind of a historic question. What is going on with the septic system and the treatment plant up at the high school? That's never seemed like it's ever been 100% right. Is that something that Martinez has corrected over the time, or is it still got issues in the parking lot area?
No, I think for the most part, every now and then you get some odors that come out of there, but Martinez, I think it's been pretty good about dealing with the issues there. We call them up, they come and fix things. But again, I'm not aware of any significant problems at this time. But again, things are getting worn out after 15, 20 years of functioning. So that's the thing I'm worried about right now is having a big hit down the road, having a surprise big hit down the road.
Right. So the only surprise big hit we're going to see is it's not even a surprise now because we know about the trash and recycling. And so we're going to we talked about that at a prior meeting. I think we've been proactive about it, and I think we took a good approach to doing that. So I appreciate you coming back with a very minimal budget, and you've followed the mandate, and I thank you for everything you've been doing. So thank you, John.
No, you're welcome. Thank you.
Well, John, I would agree with Phil. I really appreciate your hard work, your dedication. And quickly, just on the high school piece, what is the age of that system at the high school?
Yeah, right around 20 years. Yeah.
Is that right around the duration of time you would expect for that?
Yeah, again, once you start getting beyond 15 to 25, you're going to start having you go from some minor problems to some significant problems, and then you're trying to find replacement parts, which become a challenge. So, but fortunately, again, I think we have a good maintenance program. for both those systems. So we may be able to avoid any sort of, again, significant issues at both locations.
Excellent. Thank you, John. Appreciate your overview and managing your budget in a conservative manner, especially in the tight times that we're going through this year and for years ahead. So we appreciate that. Any further questions, Phil, or comments before we move on to the library fiscal year 2022 budget proposal?
I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
John, thank you for that. We have Jennifer and we have Board of Library Trustees. I see Russell here and I see his fellow members propose their budget for our consideration. I want to thank them for a very challenging year for everybody, but the library has continued to move forward in a very positive way. In some ways, I think they've been more active than ever. Though remote in some respects, they've certainly allowed that library to remain a vivid part of our community. So I want to thank Jennifer, your leadership, and the leadership of the Board of Library Trustees for the challenging year that we've just had and maintaining the excellence that we expect out of the Lynnfield Library. So thank you.
Thank you. On that note, I just wanted to share a couple of statistics with you. Even though this was the year it was, we had over 4,500 people pick up items at the library. They couldn't come inside and get them, but they did come up and get them. We had over 1,000 people attend our virtual programs since March. So I'm really proud of the work that the staff has done, and I appreciate so much that you all supported the library during this time. And we are excited to say that next week on April 1st, we will start having people in for browsing. So we've had people in the entire time since June for computer use, but now people can come and actually look at the stuff that they like to do. So that's great. And I appreciate so much your financial and moral support this past year. So thank you very much. Now we know that the budget was tight and we tried very hard to keep expenses as low as possible this year and for the next fiscal year. And we came in at just about a level funded budget. The staff salaries line, we had a couple of things that I just wanted to address for you. If you remember from last year, we had a new contract that changed how longevity was calculated. So that's why you see some negative numbers there. And our pages earn minimum wage at the library. And with the minimum wage going up, we had to do an increase there. So that's that 29.5% increase, the minimum wage going up. Then for library expenses, I moved some things around. Like John mentioned earlier, it doesn't change the bottom line, but I wanted to more accurately reflect where we were spending our money at the beginning. So that way we don't have to do so much work at the end, switching funds around. So you'll see a lot of stuff that counts towards our materials expenditure requirement going into digital. We obviously saw a huge increase in the number of items that were borrowed digitally. So I want to, give it a year and see how it susses out. We added a few more databases. We reduced some collections. So, it's going to be a year before we really know what the best balance of that is. Let me see if there's anything else there. There is also a bump in the computer equipment line, 4.1. That is a few $100s more because we can use a percentage of that to count towards our materials requirement if it's something patrons can use. So if we install software on our public computers that is for direct patron use, we can count that towards our requirement. So I've bumped that up a little bit. So all told, we come in at about level funded.
Thank you for that presentation and highlighting the wonderful work that you and your team continue to do with the Lynnfield Library.
Thank you.
With the support of the library trustees. Phil, do you have any questions or comments?
No, thank you, Jennifer. Great job with that. I see there's a jump in the ebooks too, so it must be a bigger demand there than you've had in the past, I would imagine.
Yeah, we saw about a 50% jump in all of our digital stuff, which makes sense. And we also added a lot this year, so I wanted to reflect that and see how it comes out. People still really like borrowing excuse me, borrowing their materials. So you can tell those 4,500 people, or the 4,500 visits to pick up the items at the library. And fun, challenging, but fun.
No, great, but thank you for keeping the budget in line with what we've been asking the departments to do, and and just quickly go over your capital items, because that's also something that I wanted to touch on with you.
Sure. Yeah. So our first request is self-checkout software and hardware. This is something that will help keep people distance in the library. It's going to be a nice service for people who are just busy and want to come in. It's an app you can put on your phone, so you can just come in, scan your own things, and leave. You don't have to interact with us at all. We love interacting with people, but you don't have to. And sometimes people want their privacy. Yeah. We can also set up kiosks at different points in the library, so that we one in the children's room and one by the circulation desk, so people can, come in and scan their own items. This particular software is one that the Noble Network member libraries are considering using, and so we decided to go with that particular model so that there's some consistency among the libraries in our network.
Yeah, I don't know if Rob had mentioned it to you that there's a local health group that said they would like to donate that to the library. That's terrific. I'm so excited. So we will definitely be talking to them.
Yeah.
About that on your behalf.
The next request is for the potential installation of a walk-up window. And I realize that this is probably not the number one need in the town, but there are two limits that the library building has shown us this year. One is that we only have one entrance in and out, and it's narrow, and I have concerns about people having to bump into each other. And so that's kind of top on my mind right now, especially as we bring more people in next week. The second is that we have no program space, but that's kind of a different subject. But the walk-up window is something that some libraries have set up that just is a way that we can put the stuff on a table outside the window instead of setting up a big to-do. Like we had that tent this summer, and that was great and fun and great for visibility, but it was a lot of labor-intensive stuff. And if we had a way to use one of our windows to make that an easier thing to do, it would be a great additional service. That one, at the time, I didn't have a quote, but I've since talked with DPW and Steve, and that looks like it would be about $10,000 to $20,000 for that project. And then the third are the purchase of new outdoor book returns. These were things that I was going to consider using CARES Act money for, because ours are in pretty rough shape. And the new returns would have additional bins for us that we can just take the items and put them right into quarantine. Hopefully the quarantining of items will be something that we don't have to worry about too much in the future. But we do need additional to replace our book drops at some point in the near future.
Great. Appreciate it.
Also, Selectman Crawford, it's not in the library budget, but in the DPW capital, there is funding that I'm going to recommend for a new fire alarm system for the library.
Okay. I like one of the pictures she gave us with the woman with the mechanical hand handing the book out to the person in the van. That's kind of
fun. The experts in our field who do a lot of work with construction have said that this kind of service is not going to be something people are going to want to do away with. So, I used to love going to Target, but now I have people bring my Target stuff to me. I do the same thing at restaurants. We're doing it for people at the library. So, that curbside model or a drive-through model is something I think that's going to continue on. So if we can come up with a way to make it safer for staff and for patrons and not be quite as obtrusive, that would be great.
Okay. Thank you.
So Jennifer, we certainly have seen over the last year that through some of these practices, we'll maintain. Certainly has allowed us to take a new look of how we deliver the services of the library and make it accessible to all. To see that increase over the last year, like I said, very challenging, and that's pretty impressive. Yeah. So that's good to hear that we've done that.
Thank you.
Continue a lot of those practices, those best practices we started this past year.
One thing I'm really concerned about is our programming. It's always challenging because we don't have dedicated programming space. So we're very creative. But if we can't have people meeting together in groups, it's probably not going to be a good idea to do programming in the library for a while. So luckily the weather's changing and we're trying to find some spaces outside. You know, we've done partnerships with Market Street in the past, you know, so, but that is going to be a real hindrance for us. And I'm worried about our senior citizens who are very frequent users of our library and come to a lot of really high quality programming. And we haven't seen them as much. Most of them are coming to get their books, so that's great. But not many of them have come to the online programming. So that's going to be one of the big goals for the next year for us to focus on.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jennifer. Do we have any members of our dedicated Board of Library Trustees that would like to comment on this proposed budget or their thoughts?
You're so shy.
No, we had this is Bob Calamari. I just add a couple of things. First of all, you know, not much to add in terms of what Jennifer has laid out for the operating budget. There are not too many moving parts. And the very slight increase is all related to step increases with the staff. Everything else is basically flat. And even in terms of some of these capital requests, which are relatively modest, I know the year is tight, but these are the types of things that we're requesting here that are basically all COVID related, but are more like permanent changes in terms of how people interact with the library. And I just think they make a lot of sense. I mean, if there's funding available through CARES Act or if there are donations available, that's great. But I mean, I think for relatively short dollars, it makes the library a safer and more hospitable place in a changed world. So anyway, for what it's worth.
Bob, thank you for that. Any other comments from the board?
No, I think it's been summed up pretty well.
I agree.
Well, I want to thank this team for leadership over the past year. And Jennifer, thank you. You certainly fully support the libraries in the town of Lynnfield. I understand in this challenging times, as Phil said, it's going to be a tight budget this year. And in the several departments that have come before us, we thank you for the conservative manner in which you're looking at your budget. It's going to be a challenging year for the select board. And moving forward for not just this year, but for several fiscal years ahead. So thank you for that. I'm going to move on to the annual town election warrant. This year continues to be unique. The election warrant is usually part of the annual town meeting warrant, but this year, as in the past year, they will be separate from one another, at least, the town meeting will be in June and delayed. So this warrant will be a separate warrant prepared by the town clerk. Rob, I don't know if you have any comment on this, or Bob, before we make a motion on the annual town election warrant submitted by the town clerk.
I don't have any.
Excellent. Phil, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to approve the annual town election warrant as submitted by the town clerk.
I would second that, and by roll call vote, Mr. Crawford.
Aye.
An aye and an aye. So thank you for that. We're going to move on to the proposal from the Historic Commission to paint the interior of the Pope Richard Historical Center. Historical Commission Chair Kirk Mansfield will present the proposal. This will be an item to discuss just the paint of the interior of the Historical Center. Kirk, can you speak to the proposal currently before us for consideration?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at the proposal I sent over real quick. Basically, so our goal is to clean, repair, and repaint the interior of the Pope Richard Lynnfield Historical Center. We have chosen as a painter Donald Ross and Son, who many of you know is a local painter. Impeccable reputation. The cost for that is a little over $9,000, which will be paid out of the Historical Commission's existing budget. The work to be performed will be to scrape, repair, and paint all the ceilings. Some of them have water damage right now. To scrape, repair, paint the walls, same color, and to scrape, repair, and paint the trim the windows and the doors. All paint used will be Benjamin Moore, and they will also be painting the exterior of the kitchen cabinets. Again, Benjamin Moore. To prepare for this, it's a little tricky. What we are proposing to do is to go into the house, completely photograph it as it is right now, and to make sure that all the historic items where they are placed are photographed. I have been working with Nan Hockenberry, who is going to help us with carefully wrapping these items, putting them into sturdy boxes. And the plan with Donald Ross and Son is to move all of the filing cabinets into the center of each room. Also put tables in there, and then put everything on top of the tables. And then we'll be putting a heavy-duty cloth or vinyl, plastic, whatever we're using, over the boxes to make sure that everything is unharmed. When it is all said and done, in regards to anything non-historical, stacking chairs, any tables, things like that, that cannot fit in there during this process, we propose to bring over to the meeting house temporarily for a day or two. When it is all said and done, we will thoroughly clean the house, make sure the floors are done, windows are washed, and then everything will be restored, which is why we're taking pictures and making sure that it's going to be done exactly the way it was left. Please understand the reason I have chosen Nan Hockenberry for this is she is a former president of the Lynnfield Historical Society. She is educated in historical preservation, and she is the main force who actually set that house up and did the inventory, which is in a system right now that the society has. You know, she has not been involved in many, many years, but, you know, you're not going to find anybody in this town that has as much knowledge and passion about the contents of that house than Nan. So that is why we have asked to work with her. So we're just looking for approval to get this moving, and then hopefully we can get this done either before or after the DPW starts working on the house, and everything done, coordinated, and then we'll have the new sign put out after that's approved.
Thank you. I think it's pretty straightforward. Phil, before we have a motion, do you have any questions or comments?
No, it seems straightforward. I just, if you move some furniture over to the meeting house, you got to put it right in the main floor there. Just come in the door and just leave it in the main floor until you move it right back.
Yeah, I mean, again, I really don't really see a lot of things that need to go over there. I mean, there are some stacking chairs, things like that are non-historical. If they do go over there, it'll be a matter of probably putting some type of heavy-duty cloth on the floor, because the floors were just recently done. They look really beautiful. And I wouldn't want to do anything that's going to scratch them. So again, it'd only be like a day or two if in fact we do need to use the meeting house.
No, that seems pretty straightforward. It'd be nice to have that that cleaned up and actually make it useful. So that'd be great.
Thank you, Phil. Do you have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the
Mr. Chairman,
board vote to approve the painting of the interior of the historical center.
Excuse
I
us.
would second that. And by roll
Mr.
call
Chairman?
vote, Mr. Crawford.
you can't hear us. Mr.
Aye.
Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Sorry, we're not taking public comment right now, Bob. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
That is,
I can't hear you. So, you know, that's not appropriate.
I would move on to, you're not recognized, Bob.
Thank you.
We don't have public comment. Thank you. Number 12, use of the South Branch Library.
I'm going to file a complaint.
Lynn Davis has requested that the fire department be allowed to use the former South Branch Library on Salem Street, the Fire and Emergency Management Office space. Do we have any comment on this, Rob, or is this a straightforward piece?
This is a straightforward piece. Glenn is still here. Is Glenn still here?
Yes, sir.
Glenn could make a very brief presentation on his proposal to use that space for fire and emergency management headquarters, which we currently lack.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so the area we're speaking about is the old South Branch Library located at 630 Salem Street. Fairly small building, total square footage about 800 square feet. The reason we could put this to use is COVID really brought it to light, our lack of space here at fire headquarters. For most of the year, I've vacated my office here at fire headquarters, and I've been working out of various spaces. We didn't have separate sleeping quarters for the two people sleeping at night now. We just don't have any bunk rooms. When the fire station was built back in the 60s, there was no sleeping quarters because there was no plans for future development of the fire department. So for safety reasons, I've vacated. We built an EOC down at the senior center, which worked out well during the beginning parts of COVID. And then when things started to shift to remote learning, community schools took over that area, and we had to move the senior center staff into the area that was designated as the emergency operations center. Fortunately, or unfortunately for Market Street, they've had some vacant retail space, and being good neighbors as they are, they've allowed me to operate out of vacant retail space up at Market Street for a while, which is great for restaurant access for myself, but not very conducive for fire department operations being that far away from the fire station. The proximity to South Fire makes it very favorable for us. We spoke to John Tomaz. He said he has money within his budget. I've got staff that would assist in doing what needs to be done in there to make it habitable. And essentially, it would just allow us to put some operations in that facility.
Thank you. Phil, any thoughts, comments, questions?
Mr. Chairman, as we know, that building needs some work, and I think it's a great location for you to use as a command center, particularly with its proximity to South Fire. So I think it's going to be kind of incumbent on the town for us to see if we can find some alternative storage space for the multiple groups that use that. If we can use that storage unit that's behind South Fire, that might be helpful. I also might suggest that we might be able to repurpose the building that's behind the historic center. It's not really a garage, it's more of a storage building. It doesn't really have a garage door of any type. But that could be cleaned out. That building does need to be repaired, but I think it's a good space also for some dry storage, and I think we could look at doing some renovations to that while we look at what is needed at the South Annex Library, because I think that storage unit that's behind the fire station will get filled up pretty quickly. So let's take a look at all that while we're doing the same thing, because that's been an ongoing issue in the town, is where to store everything.
Thank you, I would agree, and I think, like you said, it's a great use for a building that we have considered many different options, so I think it's something we can look at and hopefully move forward with. Do we have a motion, Phil, on item 12?
Yes, I move that the board vote to authorize the use of the former South Branch Library building on Salem Street for fire department and emergency management operations, and that the fire chief be authorized to work with the various organizations and agencies that currently use the building for storage to provide access and/or alternative storage options.
Okay, can you hear me?
I would second that motion. Roll call vote, Mr. Crawford.
Aye.
And an aye. Chief, thank you for that overview of that item. 13, the approval of extended outdoor seating for the end of the state of emergency for 60 days. This is light at the end of the tunnel. It's been a long year, and certainly for our business community, it absolutely has been. I think this is a much needed piece, and I'm happy to see that we have this before the select board tonight. Rob, do you want to speak to this before we act on it?
Quickly, Glenn and Joe Callahan and the police have done a great job with Market Street, and we have all the sites approved. And with warm weather coming, I think you're going to see some great outside dining options that will approve, pending change in the laws. But maybe in the future it's going to be allowed permanently. It's a nice option, and I think it adds to the enjoyment of Market Street.
Absolutely, Rob. Phil, any comments or questions?
Well, I have a motion for you.
Excellent.
I move the board vote to approve the extended outdoor seating for on-premise liquor liability holders, license holders through the end of the state of emergency plus 60 days as provided for by state law, and to authorize the town administrator after consultation with the emergency management team to approve such plans on behalf of the board.
I would second that by roll call vote. Mr. Crawford?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Thank you. I'm going to move to the request by the building department to hire outside counsel regarding the Ramsdale Way development. Board of Appeals and the building department require counsel on the Ramsdale Way development. Approved years ago as the development of affordable housing units under Chapter 40B. Our town council, Tom Mullen, previously served as an attorney for the developer, so there would be a conflict of interest. He has recommended to the town that we obtain outside counsel. Rob, do you want to just speak to the outside counsel for us and our action?
Joe's here. Tom Mullen has a conflict, which sometimes does happen. He's worked with Joe Callahan to recommend Jason Tallerman, and Joe recommends him. Therefore, I recommend passage too.
Excellent. Thank you, Rob. Phil, any questions on this?
I agree. I mean, we have to do this. It's the right thing to do. And if they're comfortable with Mr. Tallerman, I'd approve it. I'll make the motion. I move that the board vote to authorize the engagement of Jason Tallerman of Tallerman, Mead and Costa to represent the town as special town counsel for the Ramsdale Way development.
I will second that by roll call vote. Mr. Crawford?
Aye.
I am an aye also. Thank you. We move on to 15, use of facilities, Easter Sunrise Ceremony, Center Congregational Church in Newhall Park. Easter is upon us. The spring is here. Hope is in the air. So I think this is something we would want to offer up and recommend. Phil, do you have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move the board vote to approve the application by the Center Congregational Church for an Easter sunrise ceremony at Newhall Park.
I would second that. And by roll call vote, Mr. Crawford?
Aye.
I am an aye. Thank you. Number 16, request for executive session on the Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss the bargaining strategy with non-union personnel for which an open discussion may adversely affect the town's negotiating position. Do I have a motion, Mr. Crawford?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board vote to enter executive session under Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to bargaining strategy and not with non-union personnel in which an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body.
And I would just like to let the community know that after our roll call vote, the board will not be re-entering public session. Roll call, Mr. Crawford.
Aye.
And I am an aye again. The board will not be entering public session after our executive session. Everybody have a wonderful night. It was a long meeting on a fine Monday afternoon and early evening. So I want to thank everybody for participating tonight. Have a wonderful night and stay safe.
Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you.